My name's Marty Roberts. I'm a longtime moose hunter. I've been hunting for about 34 years. I'm also a contributing writer for Ontario Out of Doors, and over the 34 years of moose hunting, I've taken a lot of time to study the habits of the moose and the communications that the moose use. And in the studies that I've done, I've found that there's maybe 6 or 7 different vocal calls that they use, and just as many non-vocal calls that, I call them calls. They're not particularly that way, but they will attract a moose. Moose are very curious, so these non-vocal calls are very important. They're an important tool that you can use, and hopefully I can demonstrate them for you. One of the most important ways of maybe not scaring moose away as much as attracting them is the way you walk into your location where you're going to hunt from. If you're hunting on a swamp or in a tree stand or just walking the edges of lakes or logging roads, you want to think like a moose would or appreciate how the moose would think. When they hear an animal walking in a straight line non-stop to them, that usually means danger, whether it's another moose or some sort of other animal. Animals in danger go in a straight line non-stop. So you want to walk in maybe in a zigzag pattern, 20 or 30 yards at a time, slowly stop. That would imitate a moose browsing and feeding or having a drink. Wait a few seconds, walk another 20 or 30 yards. It may take you a couple minutes longer to get into your spot, but the moose that are in that area, if they're there, will feel much more comfortable. They won't be afraid when you walk in there. Just the same as if you make noise by breaking branches. If you step on branches on the way in, splashing a little bit of water, there's nothing wrong with the sound of the sticks breaking. And you can even do that while you're sitting on your stand. Use that as part of your call. Simple breaking of a stick like that. Some thick, some thin, maybe a little loud, doesn't matter. It's just the sounds that a moose would make as they're walking around in that area. Now, another couple of calls that you can use that work as an attractant to the moose and gets them curious, especially a bull who thinks there may be a cow in the area, and you've used some vocal calls, which we'll discuss later. Some of the things you want to do is just imitating what the moose would do, would be walking along the water's edge. You want to scoop water up in your call and dribble it in to imitate the sound of the cow moose urinating in the pond. Walk over and brush into the low-lying brushes a little bit, make some sound. Walk through the grass. Don't be afraid to make noise. You don't have to tiptoe around in perfect silence. Moose don't do that. No animal does that. They do make a little sound, and don't be afraid to make the same sounds that they do, and use that to your advantage. The last non-vocal call that I want to discuss would be to imitate a bull banging his rack, whether he's rubbing it on a tree, or it could even be 2 bulls fighting, which would take an awful lot of banging, but just use your call. Bang it on a rock, bang it with another call, or on a tree limb or a stick, anything like that. While I have the calls out, I'll just demonstrate some of the different types of calls, and it's all just a matter of preference. They all have a different sound. This is the standard birch bark call. I've had this one a lot of years. Obviously it has to be held together with duct tape, but it does give a real nice sound. I have a couple of steer horn calls that 2 different tones altogether. The next 2, this one's just a simple child's plastic baseball bat, something that's very non-destructive. If you do lose it, you don't have to worry about it. Actually has a very nice tone. The last one I have was a call made by a former world moose calling champion, Owen Scott, and Owen gave me this call. It's something he made himself, of mostly out of fiberglass. Has a very nice tone and has brought in a number of moose. One of the aspects of calling that's very important, you want to get that nasal tone. So when you make the call, you pinch off your nostrils with your 2 fingers, place the call up to your mouth. Don't call with your vocal cords, bring it up from below. Press with your diaphragm and get as much air out as you can. You have to remember you're imitating an animal with a pair of lungs that are absolutely enormous, more than double the size of your lungs. So you want to imitate that expiration of air when you make the call. Okay, the first call that you're going to hear or see me demonstrate, which, by the way, when you see the demonstration I'm wearing the orange, it's when we're actively hunting, and that's when we tape those calls. The first one you're going to see is the cow call. It's the cow seeking a mate, and where most people might think that it's the cow just seeking her first mate of the year, usually it's the cow signaling to a bull that she's dissatisfied with the mate she has at the present time. She's trying to attract another. Either way, it's very important that you do this call. It can have 2, 3, 4, or 5 sections to the call. When I say sections, when you hear me do the call, you'll hear probably 4 times 7 seconds. Each one of those calls should be at least 7 seconds in length. So you even want to try to count that out as you're making the call. So you'll hear a 7-second call 4 times. That's one series. You might want to wait 20 to 30 minutes, do it again, and that should be it for a couple of hour period. You don't want to overcall. If you don't get a response, it doesn't mean there's not a moose in the area. You just wait it out, be patient, don't overcall. But it is very important. In nature, when a cow calls, those calls last at least a minimum 7 seconds, and you want to do the same.